the UCT big band they are going to absolutely enthrall us with a Mama Miriam Makeba tribute. The singers are so excited to be performing for you all, so I will not say much. I will let the party get started. Please welcome the UCT Little Big Band under the directorship of Associate Professor Amanda Tiffin. Enjoy.
Wakurugenzi, mabibi na mabwana na wanafunzi wenzangu, hamjambo. Mbele yenu hapa ni wanafunzi wa shule ya muziki ya UCT. Kabla tuingie katika harakati zetu za muziki, ningependa kuzungumza kidogo kuhusu yaliyotokea hapa. So, if there's one thing we can undoubtedly agree, is the remarkable ability that music has to bring people together. Today we shall be performing a small tune, Malaika. Miriam Makeba embodied the unique ability of speech, communicating through her music. Most of us here know this song through her. A citizen of the universe, it was never a doubt that Miriam Makeba's heart was Africa. It's no wonder she knew this song and understood its meaning by heart despite not speaking the language. I'll quote a small part of her biography where she explains how she came across this song, and hopefully it will help you guys to understand the background of Malaika. When I was in San Francisco State, some students complained that I never do a song from their country. Okay, teach me one, I said, and they taught me this beautiful song, Malaika. This song is in Kiswahili, the language prominently spoken in Kenya, Tanzania, Congo, Rwanda, and Burundi. Malaika is a love song. A man sings to his beloved, whom he cannot marry, as he has no wealth. Malaika is of Tanzanian origin. It was written in 1943 by Adam Salim and first recorded by Fadhili Williams in 1963. With this beautiful, simple, repetitive melody, these words of love have grown timeless, a marvel of what a little music and language can do, bringing together people from all walks of life. As the old wise men would say, umoja ni nguvu, utengano ni udhaifu. Malaika.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon to everyone. My name is Amanda Tiffin. Please give it up for Amy Campbell and the UCT Jazz Choir. And our soloist for that, her name is Maria Kimoto. It's our very great pleasure and honor to be here today to play the music of Miriam Makeba. Some of the songs you'll hear are very familiar songs, but we've kind of taken our own little spin with them, so you may not recognize them exactly the way that Miriam Makeba sang them, but they're definitely beautiful pieces that Miriam Makeba made famous. And to start us off, please welcome on stage one of our wonderful singers, many of the singers you'll hear today. Her name is Anati Morbo.
Good afternoon. I almost said good evening. Yo. How are we today? Oh, this mic. I didn't get any responses. Thank you. So rude. We'll be doing a song called Iyakuduza. I hope you guys enjoy. I love your jacket. It's shiny. Ooh. iyakudu zintatisele yodentini iyakuduza ifuni mali ayisebe zilentotisele yodentini iyakuduza ifuni mali ayisebe zilentotisele yodentini. Thank you very much. Next up, we have two amazing vocalists. Their names are Carly and Ukonco. They will be singing Mashkina Ada, right? Yes, I hope you guys enjoy.
Que quero passar, pois o samba está animado. O que eu quero é samba. Este samba que é misto de maracatu. É samba de preto velho, samba de preto tu.
Mas que nada, samba como este é tão legal. Você não vai querer chegar no final. Opa, opa, opa. Oh,
opa, opa, opa. Mas que nada, sai da minha frente que quero passar. Pois o samba está animado. O que eu quero é samba. Este samba que é misto de maracatu.
É samba de preto velho, samba de preto tu. Mas que nada, samba como este tá legal. Você não vai querer chegar no final. Opa, opa, opa. Opa, opa, opa. Mas que nada, opa, opa, opa. Opa, opa, opa. Mas que nada. Mas que nada, mas que nada. Mas que nada, mas que nada. Mas que nada, mas que nada.
Thank you so much. That song was performed by Mum Miriam Makeba. A beautiful version, a little slower than that, I think, but still a beautiful version nonetheless. And we'd like to invite a lovely young singer on stage now to sing a South African classic. Please give a warm welcome to Ms. Lebohang Banda.
sweet kwelonkyolo ndakhangela ndasondela lalisitsho lisithi thili 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 ngilonkyilo imnandi lonkyolo devil is weak kwelonkyolo ndakhangela ndasondela lalisitsho lisithi ilizwe lifile ngilonkyilo imnandi lonkyolo wayembethe ingubo ezimhlophe wayembethe ingubo ezibomvu lalisitsho lisithi thili 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 ngilonkyilo imnandi lonkyolo
Give it up for Lebo. Lebo Hang Banda. Watch this space. You are listening to future stars here today. And please give it up for the wonderful Gilson Amaral on the alto saxophone. We are celebrating Africa Month or Africa Day yesterday, and our band is a Pan-African band. Gilson comes from Mozambique. Joshua Nemaide on the bass comes from Zimbabwe. Joshua Klein, I don't know where you come from, but he's from Cape Town. You've got Timothy Erenaich on the guitar over there. And the third Joshua is Joshua Wheatley on the piano. Those are all our South Africans. I'm a Zimbabwean as well. Well, now we're South African, really. And we'd like to welcome two wonderful singers to stage to sing some real Miriam Makeba classics. Give a warm welcome to Asimahle and to Pamela. Asimahle Choloba and Pamela Lunguza.
Intonga zamakhwenkwe zophukela emlanjeni wam xa kubethwa intonga iyam amadoda yoyika ukubheka emlanjeni yam kuba kubethwa intonga ajikele emaweni ndiyahamba jikele emaweni ndiyahamba jikele emaweni ndiyahamba jikele emaweni ndiyahamba aklenza amakhwenkwe aklenza kwabamandi aklenza amakhwenkwe aklenzele emgodini aklenza amakhwenkwe aklenza kwabamandi aklenza amakhwenkwe aklenzele emgodini jikele emaweni ndiyahamba jikele emaweni ndiyahamba jikele emaweni ndiyahamba jikele emaweni ndiyahamba ajika amadoda ajika kwabamandi ajika amadoda ajikele emgodini ajika amadoda ajika kwabamandi ajika amadoda jikele emgodini iyo 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 ajika amadoda ajika kwabamandi ajika amadoda ajikele emgodini ajika amadoda ajika kwabamandi ajika amadoda jikele emgodini jikele emaweni ndiyahamba jikele emaweni ndiyahamba jikele emaweni ndiyahamba jikele emaweni ndiyahamba aklenza amadoda aklenza kwabamandi aklenza amadoda aklenzele emgodini aklenza amadoda aklenza kwabamandi jika amajika jikele emgodini jikele emaweni ndiyahamba jikele emaweni ndiyahamba jikele emaweni ndiyahamba jikele emaweni ndiyahamba ajika amadoda ajika kwabamandi ajika amadoda jikele emgodini ajika amadoda ajika kwabamandi ajika amadoda ajikele emgodini intonga zamakhwenkwe zophukela emlanjeni yam xa kubethwa intonga
igqirha lendlela kuqongqothwane igqirha lendlela kuthiwa nguqongqothwane igqirha
kuthiwa nguqongqothwane sebeqale begqitha phaa nguqongqothwane sebeqale begqitha phaa hayi nguqongqothwane igqirha lendlela hayi nguqongqothwane igqirha lendlela kuthiwa ke nguqongqothwane igqirha lendlela hayi nguqongqothwane lendlela kuthiwa nguqongqothwane sebeqale begqitha phaa nguqongqothwane sebeqale begqitha phaa kuthiwa nguqongqothwane sebeqale begqitha phaa nguqongqothwane beqale begqitha phaa kuthiwa nguqongqothwane. Can we all sing? Igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane igqirha lendlela kuthiwa nguqongqothwane igqirha lendlela aya nguqongqothwane igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane.
Pamela Asimahle, and they had Konto and Lebo with them for backing vocals. Give it up. And you heard a little bit of Jade on the tenor saxophone. With this next piece, this was arranged by one of my colleagues, Mr. Sean Johannes. It's a nice version of a classic. You'll recognize it as soon as you hear the melody. Please welcome on stage to sing the song, Casey van Heerden.
Lakutshonilanga zakubuya inkomo ndakucinga ngawe lakutshonilanga yakuveliyanga phesheya kolwandle zakubuya lakutshonilanga ndohamba ndikufuna ezindlini nasezitratweni esibhedlele etrongweni ndinde ndikufumane yakubeliyanga phesheya kolwandle zakubuya intaka lakutshonilanga Lo amandikufuna ezindlini nasezitratweni esibhedlele etrongweni ndide ndikufumane lakutshona ilanga zakubuyinkomo ndakucinga ngawe lakutshona ilanga lakutshona ilanga.
That's Miss Casey van Heerden. We'd like to close now, and before we do that, we'd like to say thank you very much for having us. It's been a wonderful experience to share this music with you. And thank you very much to Ms. Nomfundo Kaluva, Kaluva Jangchis, who invited us to perform today. Thank you so much for organizing that for us. Thank you very much to my colleague Amy Campbell for whipping the choir into shape in a very short notice. So thank you to Amy Campbell and the UCT Jazz Choir. You can clap for them too. And a special thanks to our wonderful sound engineer, Mr. Dave Cathcart, over there. So we're going to close with a medley. It's a little bit of a sneaky one. All of these songs were performed by Miriam Makeba, but one. See if you know which one. And to sing that, please welcome back on stage Anati Mobo and her backing singers. Thanks so much.
Supposed to say something. We'll be doing a lovely medley called the Dorothy Masuka medley, but it's songs that Miss Miriam Makeba sang. So please forgive me, it's not my fault. If you blame anyone, blame Miss A.
Into yam tiyayithanda nobisela utywala tinxanywa yiyo yandisebenzela into yam tiyayithanda nobisela utywala tinxanywa yiyo yandisebenzela ndasuka eGoli ndinesimilo ndafika eKapa yaphela tu ndasuka eGoli ndinesimilo ndafika eKapa yaphela tu into yam tiyayithanda nobisela utywala tinxanywa yiyo yandisebenzela into yam tiyayithanda nobisela utywala tinxanywa yiyo yandisebenzela ndithi thula mama thula mama thula mama thula mama ndithi thula mama thula mama thula mama thula mama mama thula mama thula mama thula mama thula 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 mama thula mama. Yetuluma kumete long twalo wake. Yetuluma kumete long twalo wake. Eye bakubonu luhamba naye. Eye bakubonu luhamba naye. Yo 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 makumet. Yo 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 makumet. Yo 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 makumet. Yo 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 makumet. Yo pata pata yo. Yo pata pata, yo pata pata, yo pata pata, yo. Sako muga sate bega, Nancy pata pata. Sako muga sate bega, yo pata pata. Sako muga sate bega, Nancy pata pata. Sako muga sate bega, yo pata pata. Ay yo mama yo mama, Nancy pata pata. Ay yo Nancy pata pata, yo pata pata. Ay yo mama yo mama, Nancy pata pata. Ay yo Nancy pata pata, yo pata pata. Thank you guys so much for coming out. We really, really appreciate you. I'll be introducing the band quickly. We have Joshua, Timothy, Joshua, their names are really Joshua. We have Katie, Jed, Lebu, Tamsin, Jilson, Jed, Emily. Did I forget someone? Okay, vocalists, we have Konto, we have Pam, Asemahle, Lebu, I'm Anati, and that's the amazing Amanda Tiffin. Thank you guys so much. Sako moga sate bega, Nancy pata pata. Sako moga sate bega, yo pata pata. Sako moga sate bega, Nancy pata pata. Sako moga sate bega, yo pata pata. Thank you guys so much.
We're doing a quick changeover to get the panel on the stage, but I'd like to make a few remarks as we lead to that. It's a great privilege to be standing here today. It's Africa Day, and it's wonderful to be spending time on African matters, especially in this fashion. My name is Brenda Sisani. I'm from the International Jazz Day movement in South Africa, which is a global movement, which is a national movement in South Africa. It is all about using jazz as a tool for solidarity. And when we started this project in 2015, when it was launched in 2011 inside the United Nations, we gathered together as practitioners, educators, musicians, media, and artists to just decide if the whole world is joining this movement, what does it mean for South Africa? What does it mean for Africa? And it happened to coincide at a set time in South Africa when we had the first clashes of anti-xenophobia strikes and other things that were very unpleasant to experience as a nation. And that really made us think very deeply about what music is to Africa. So one of the pillars in fact, starting this movement was to open a dialogue amongst African people using music. And Every year, the movement has grown legs. At the 30th of April each year, when the world celebrates the music of jazz, South Africa has hundreds of events across the country, in schools, in music centers, in libraries, in people's homes. But it's not just in South Africa, the rest of the continent. In fact, this year at the UN, when this International Jazz Day turned 10 years old, they celebrated Africa, because across the continent, 33 countries celebrate this movement. When we had a discussion, and I should give credence to the board director of the Spin Foundation, which is whom we represent, Shadow Twala was here for the launch of a book by Ms. Barbara Masekela. She was here as invited by the university. And when she spoke to the Vice Chancellor, she expressed the work that we were doing, and that's how this whole magic started. It turned out beautifully when we heard from the university that there is a program about introducing Kiswahili. And it just became automatic that these two conversations should intersect around, because they both are languages that are extremely immersive and available to us every day at our fingertips. And it's a great pleasure to be able to engage these two dialects, this human conversation pieces that we have with one another, and to talk about them, especially in terms of what they mean to us and how they have kind of, led things such as liberation struggles through the continent. And Miriam Makeba sits central to that, because also this year the world was celebrating Makeba's 90th birthday had she been walking these plains with us. So I really, really want to thank everybody who worked behind the scenes to make this happen. And I'm going to do so and really, really start at the top, and just acknowledge the workforce that went in to put together this team. As I said when I started, I want to welcome honorable guests who are sitting here, as well as those that are joining us online. We appreciate you taking time to join the celebration. I want to appreciate the Vice Chancellor of the University, Mema Mokgeti Phakeng, and of course, Professor Shose Kesi, who also brought in a heavyweight panel that came this morning and led us into serious reflections about the place of language and Africanism. And of course, the desk of the Development and Alumni Department. I'd like to thank Libo Msengeni Bam, together with her team. I also want to appreciate Aloy Khaune from the Communications and Marketing Department, and the rest of the team. It's too big to read through today, but everybody that has made it happen, we want to appreciate you. And I'm doing these announcements because I do believe we're about to have another immersive discussion, and at the end of it, when we disperse, I want to have said the right things. And I want to thank the board of the Spin Foundation to continue fighting to get us to talk through the language of music, so that we can drop the barriers of seeing each other through language or even colonial languages. So thank you very much for allowing us to continue doing this work. How this particular panel is going to run, we're going to start with a video, which is an opening video for 10 minutes. And after that, the panel will come on stage to come and start the discussions. And for that, I really will be welcoming on stage Dr. Letambulu. She's South Africa's preeminent performing artist. She's in the room today. Let's give her a round of applause. Dr. Gcina Mhlophe is attending another Africa Month celebration, but she couldn't not let her voice be heard on this specific panel, and she's going to be joining us on this video, as well as Thandiswa Mazwai is recording her album in New York, but she decided to send a message to us about the importance of this moment in all the themes. And we've got Miss Judith Sepuma in the room with us. Please, a round of applause. She's an acclaimed songstress and multi-award-winning artist. Ms. Nikwe Pikicha is in the room with us to deepen the deliberations. A leading journalist and accomplished media and communications professional. May I also take a moment to acknowledge Nomfundo Xaluva. She is our board advisor, and she reminds us to be present when we deal with the subject of music, given that she's a musician, she's an educator. She started this morning on a powerful note. These 50 young people that just left went through a master class of how we can bring history into the classroom using music and icons such as Miriam Makeba. It was incredible. Thank you, Nomfundo. I'm going to let the technical team set up the table and hand over to the panel. Thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Sanibonani, sanibonani, sanibonani. I'm Dr. Gcina Mhlophe. Or you call me Noku Gcina, the daughter of Babu Mhlophe, uzindela, unkomohle, uthumbeza, uphuthaza, abaphuthaza izulu abanye belesaba, ontombeze ndangonyezi, ezabafokazana zenda ngomnyama. Or you can call me Umama Kakhwezi. Just like that. I'm grateful and honored to be given this small opportunity to honor our Mama Africa, Empress of African Song, the daughter of a very special woman. She was called Christina. Yazi, the way we have these names that come from the Christianness of our colonizers. They wanted us to have certain names, and these are the names. Fascinating enough, my mother as well was Christine. I think the most amazing thing about Mama Miriam is not only her voice, it is not the way she healed with her songs, it is not the way she touched so many lives, it is the way she was grounded in who she was. For me, that's one of the most amazing things about Mama Miriam, something that we felt even before we were lucky to meet her. I think of this young baby that was born 18 days after her birth. She was arrested with her mother and went to jail for 6 months. Imagine growing up, taking your crawling little steps in jail just because her mother sold umqombothi. The white people could sell their alcohol of the greatest strength, much more intoxicating than umqombothi, our own African brew. But our people were not allowed. Her mother was a businesswoman. She made sure that she makes a living for herself. She also worked in different spaces, but the most memorable one was that she was a traditional healer. She was a healer, isangoma. Wayebona, wayelapha abantu, and through what she had been trained in doing, she went to Swaziland to train the mother of Mama Miriam. And she was healing, she cared, she loved not only her family, but she also loved the people around her. And that is the kind of thing that she imbibed, something that she got about the strength that she saw in her mother. A woman who didn't just want to survive, but a woman who wanted to thrive. Now, Mama Miriam had to be strong, she had to be determined, and at a young age, she got married. Didn't last long. She had a child, a beautiful child called Bongi. Siyabonga, ukubonga, to give thanks. Her daughter became her sense of joy. Umama kaBongi. It became her sense of joy. And she came back to live in Johannesburg, and she continued with something that was going to give her such joy and a sense of identity and a global reach. Song, music. When she was on stage, she was a lioness. You couldn't touch her. You see, she had this unique voice. And when she started, I don't think people knew where she was going. I don't think she even knew how far she was going to go to represent not only her people inside South Africa, in maybe London or New York. It was global, her reach through music. And the fact that music gave her so much joy, and that joy was infectious and touched so many people. It also meant that when she touched those people, when she became visible, she was even invited to go to address the United Nations Special Assembly. Who's ever heard of such a thing? Huh? Just a normal young woman from Africa to address a musician, somebody in the creative arts. You know how many people look down upon us in the creative arts. She addressed the United Nations Special Assembly in the early 1960s. She didn't know that what she said, she was telling the truth about what was going on in our country. What she said was going to block the doors and the gates, burglar bars and everything, to her coming back home. And so she was in exile without planning to go to exile. Even when her mother passed away, she was not allowed to come back and bury her mother. And many, many painful experiences she experienced. But she continued to share joy and positivity. And she always said, the three things I was born with, I will die with them. One of them is hope. Another one, determination. Another one, song. I'll always have hope, determination, and song. And she did until her dying day. How honored we are to have had a Mama Miriam Makeba in our lives. Uzenzile. Yazi, one of the things I love about her is her sense of identity. Even at a time when people thought she must do more about representing the continent, she says, I don't have to act like I'm African, I am African. And that was really wonderful for her to be able to know that, to say that, to recognize that. And another thing, she had a gift of learning languages. She sang in Kiswahili, she sang in Portuguese, she sang in Wolof. I mean, one of the things I've been honored to experience is to watch her online. Hey, tell you these YouTube possibilities to watch her singing a song with Birago Diop. An amazing, great mind from Senegal, Birago Diop. I was so happy to hear Mama Miriam. She had a gift of learning different languages and she sang in those languages. How fabulous is that? She made songs that were never going to touch us in South Africa accessible to us. Malaika being one of those. Many South Africans don't know anything about Kiswahili. We don't speak Kiswahili, and I think it's a great crime. We should be learning to speak Kiswahili as citizens of the African continent. Mama Miriam Makeba went ahead and learned these different languages. Another thing is that when she was kicked out of the United States, she was persona non grata. She was welcomed and embraced by different countries. She had citizenship in 10 different countries. She had passports in 9 different countries. And when she had those passports in 9 different countries, she didn't have a pass to come back to South Africa. She didn't have South African citizenship. But she became Mama Africa. She, through her music, through her determination, through her hope, through her ability to embrace so many people, giving joy, even in times when she experienced pain herself, she gave joy. She became Mama Africa. She was no longer just the mother of Bongi. She became a mother to many. Many of us saw her as a mother. And in times when we had to hide her music, because the police were raiding our homes. I was living in Alexandria at the time, and they would come and search our homes for banned books, for banned music. I mean, a government that can ban a song like Mannenberg, it's instrumental, for crying out loud, but they banned it anyway. You know, Mama Miriam, we listened to her music. We felt energized. She sang a song that was in a musical on Broadway. It was called Wait a Minute. The song was A Piece of Ground. Fighting for this land. You know, the 1913 Land Act. We are still fighting for land in 2022. Hello, you call it freedom. It's not yet. Sis Letta will tell you about that. You know, she sang about Gauteng, this gold, where our people got buried alive, digging a gold. When they came out, they couldn't afford even to buy a proper wedding ring for the woman they loved. And all that sweat and blood and everything went to enrich foreign countries. The blood of our men went and enriched all those countries, and they thought they were the developed world. By stealing the wealth, the gold, the diamonds, the platinum, the titaniums, you name it, they stole from us. They continue to do so. Even in times like these, when we say we are free. Mama Miriam Makeba sang about those. Mama Miriam Makeba sang a song which I never understood until I read the biography of Mama Makanya, the great pioneer again. She was one of the first women to be a professional nurse in KwaZulu-Natal, Mama Katie Makanya. When she sang, Hangikomi KwaZulu, mina ngome mabhaqeni, ngikomi KwaZulu, mina ngome mabhaqeni. I didn't know what, she just thought akaqomi KwaZulu. But when you read the book about what happened during the wars of Shaka and about how many families had to run to the south coast and run all the way, cross Umzimvubu and cross Umzimkhulu and Umzimvubu and end up under Palo, the king of the Xhosa. They knew that they were safer there. But the warriors chased them, and many of them were killed as they were lying on the side of the path, wherever they were. You know, emabhaqeni ukubhaqa means to be in exile. There was exile here in South Africa. So she said, I will not fall in love with a man from KwaZulu. I will marry a man from KwaBhaca. KwaBhaca is the Western Cape, the area, the Eastern Cape, an area like Mount Frere. Mount Frere, KwaBhaca. In fact, that's where my mother comes from Umashezi. Now, you look at all of the things she sang. She was in touch with politics in other countries as well. She was very, very conscious, and she was a cultural ambassador. Many of us watched her, listened to her, and many others who were out there, Osis Letambulu, or But Kaifa Siminya, or Babu Jonas Gwangwa, or But Huma Sigela, or you listen to the great Johnny Kiani, great musician, Osis Spinisa Soul. There are so many others, Upi Benjamin, amazing musicians. They represented us. They healed through music. And the daughter of Mama Miriam, a singer, a composer, a musician, was possessed. You could watch her on stage. You felt like the spirit, the energy, the magic of her grandmother lived inside her. Mama Miriam Makeba said something special. She said, I know people think something happens to me when I'm on stage. The spirits take over. And yes, they do. They take over. Because if I don't have that outlet through music, I would go mad. The same thing happened to the daughter. She had the spirits. She would be taken over. She would be taken over by the spirits on stage. And if she did not have that outlet, a lot of things would go wrong. And many of us watch these cultural ambassadors, and we didn't have to go to a class, to go to a workshop. We watched and we followed Sanyatele Kondweni. When we followed on those footsteps, we knew that we've got something to say. We've got a role to play. It has never been about being successful, about being famous, about looking at me. It's about us being nation builders, being cultural ambassadors, having something to contribute. Because if I don't contribute anything, I have no idea why I'm blessed. I have no idea why people honor the work that I do. And so the likes of Mama Miriam have been unbelievable. She truly was an empress of African music. Umama Africa. One of her quotations that I love, she talks about this hope. When they asked her, how do you see the future? Like she has got a crystal ball. She said, I see the future being a time when my people will be free. When we will be able to go back home and make a difference. We'll be able to go back home and live like other people who are dignified and respected in their own land of birth. And if I don't have that hope, something will go wrong. I might as well curl up and die right now. I remember her saying another time, I look at an ant and I see myself. In that great big universe, I see the ant always determined, carrying loads much bigger than him or herself. And I see myself saying, no matter how small I am, I've got such a huge contribution to make in this country, in this continent, and in this world. And so we must never look down upon ourselves. We've got a lot to say. And I celebrate each and every one of you who chose this day to honor Mama Miriam Makeba. Because in March 1934, when she was born, was a lucky day for all of us. Lucky day indeed that we had a beautiful, awesome well-rounded, with all her complications. Like, who's ever met a perfect person? You're not looking at her. Far from perfect. So you look at Mama Miriam Makeba and you know how lucky we were when she sang all those different songs and different varieties and love songs. And she said, unify us, don't divide us. Unify us. West Wind, unify, don't divide us. She always said, we're tired of poverty. We're tired of dying. Oh my, are we tired of dying in this year, 2022? May Corona let his grip loose on us. May we relearn to honor, respect, and love one another. Tanda nani ma Africa, tanda nani. Let's use all our gifts, brick upon brick upon brick upon brick, to rebuild this continent and not expect other people to do things for us. Vuga uzenzele ma Africa. Ngiyabonga. We salute Mama Africa, our Empress of African Song. Ngiyabonga.
The panelists feeling like there isn't really anything left to say. Dr. Mhlophe uyitye yonke bekuzawutsho mama ngesixhosa uyitye yonke sawujoba amazwi akhe, but I know for a fact that it is such an incredible honor to have you here with us this afternoon. And I know also that there is going to be so much value that you're going to add to this gathering. I remember in our conceptualizing of this event, and I said to Mrs. Brenda, I said, do you think we can get Umamleta? You know, I mean, I was taking a chance, okay? I thought, never gonna happen. But look today, she is here. Siyabulela mama ngobukho bakho. And the reason really that we wanted you to be a part of this afternoon, I felt like we needed to get an account from someone who was there. From someone who was there, because Tina says, and we'll say this, and we have scholars, and we bring our scholarly what, and we quote, but ultimately, the privilege of listening to the story from someone who was there. And so I want to open and allow you, because I've got questions, and I sent questions to you, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I want you to share with us what you want to share from your spirit, as opposed to me asking a specific question. I feel like we are so blessed to have you that talk to us. Share with us what you would like for us to know. What was it like arriving in the United States? It was the era of Sponono. And you find yourself as a young vocalist, having performed in South Africa before, with the Swanky Spots, I think it is. And I remember you telling a story in an interview with Anelem Dodd, and you said, you know, this leader of the Swanky Spots came and said, we want you to sing with us. And you said, oh, you're going to have to go through my parents. So tell us, what was it like you're finding yourself now in the United States? Paint a picture for us. What was going on?
Wow. Molweni. Niyaphila nonke? Ayinathi siyaphila. Before I forget, I would like to allow to quote a Chinese proverb that says, the beginning of wisdom is when you start calling things by their real name. We will come back to this. I just wanted to, so that I don't forget it. When I met, okay, let me just start by talking about how Sizenzi helped me to be able to get over in the United States. First of all, I didn't really want to go, because because I was very busy here in South Africa. I was doing a play called Back in Your Own Backyard with Ben Sech Masinga, Victor Ndlazelwane, and many other artists. And my husband, Caiphas, was already overseas doing Sponono. But the play closed down, and he wanted me to come because he said to me, I'm not coming back to South Africa, I'm staying. I said, no, if you're staying, then hey, that's it, because I'm not leaving South Africa. I was not impressed with America. He said, no, it would be nice, you know, we can arrange something, get the money to bring you over. And the next thing, I got a letter from Miss Makeba saying, Nana, she used to call me Nana, because I met her in South Africa. I didn't meet her in the States. Nana, it would be nice for you to come to the States. I said, okay. He said, and you know, we'll do things. I said, okay. I was only 20 years old, and you know, I said, okay. That's when I really made up my mind to go. And Miriam was the one who facilitated my travels. I paid my ticket, and I ended up in the States. They came to pick me up at the airport, and I said, okay. We drove through New York, and I kept looking to see the golden streets of New York and the pearls in the streets. And I arrived in December, which was very cold. And there was snow everywhere, and I don't like cold weather. And I said, after a while, we were driving, I said to them, Miriam, Hume, Caiphas, and Mr. Panda, I said, when are we getting to New York? They looked at me and said, we are in New York. I was so devastated inside. And they all laughed. I said, what's funny? I thought we were still getting to New York. And to cut a long story short, I was not impressed. So my spirit told me while I was still here that New York is not your place. Anyway, Miriam facilitated my travels, and she also got me to work at the Village Gate in New York. I spent 2 weeks in Village, and Huey rehearsed his band for me. And that's really how it happened. And also Miriam came up with a good idea, for herself, of course. She decided that I sing background. Every time she traveled, it was fun for me because now I was beginning to see the city. I really enjoyed that because most of the music that she was doing I knew. And she really opened my eyes to no end. I think the second week I was in New York, she invited me to come and see her perform at Birdland. It was quite a famous club then. And I was standing right next to the bar, and she hit the stage. Oh, before I forget, Miriam, her curtain raiser was Bill Cosby and Mongo Santa Maria. And I know the South Africans don't know that. I thought I would throw that one on you. But when she came up on that stage, she turned my life around. I was never the same again. I saw a queen coming on stage with her long gowns, with her short hair. She was so gorgeous. When she opened her mouth, I went totally berserk. She sang Intonga Zamakhwenkwe with that high soprano of hers. I said, my goodness, I want to be like that. That's how I met Miss Makeba. When she opened her mouth, talking about her people in this country, what was going through, what the people were going through, I said, my God, this is the way to use your platform. This is it. There's no other way. My spirit started to connect. And after that, everything became history. I knew my role. I knew exactly what to do. So that's what Miriam did for me. She helped me to grow as a performer. And I call her my tower of power. That's what Miriam did.
I'm trying to imagine as well, because you mentioned the village gate. And reading Makeba's first biography with James Hall, whom I've invited to, and I'm hoping he's with us virtually at the moment. She says that, she says basically that, well, you've got another singer who's, another black singer from South Africa. Why are you bringing somebody else on the stage? This kind of idea that there's only room for one. And she said to him, I think it was Max Gordon or something, she said to him, but there's room. There's room for somebody else. It's not only me who's got this gift. It's not only me who's got the responsibility to do this.
Yes.
Can you share with us perhaps whether is that how you felt at all times, this power and this kind of agency and this determination to share the space? That Miriam was not, it was not just about me, and Umamugina said as well, it's not me. Can you speak to us as well about just the generosity that you experienced, especially in exile? I'm assuming it was not easy.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. It was very difficult, actually. But I think Miriam had an agenda. Miriam was trying to say to the American people, I do come from a high culture. I'm not only the only one. We are many. We can do, we are good. So don't look at me only. They will come. They keep coming. And that was Miriam's agenda. And it worked. Because when we all started hitting these platforms, we started speaking the same language. We started talking about our people. We started talking about, and the songs were about that. And they started to accept that South Africans, you are bad.
You are bad. You are so good, you're bad. I'm thinking about, this concept, this power, the power of repertoire, right? The power of music. And how, and I'm just reminded as well about the masterclass this morning, that how is it that we can use music? Because I know for myself, if you hear a song, it immediately transports you back into time. And you can see that, the song reminds me, and the memory becomes so vivid, right? And I want to bring you, Judith, into the scene here. Not only are you an alumni of the university, so you've gone through, performing. In fact, it's an interesting story. You're watching the big band. The first time I performed with the big band was in 2004, and I sang, "Fly Away, My Heart, Don't Despair," on this very stage, right? And I want you to talk to us, perhaps, what is the power of repertoire? Did you come across Miriam Makeba's repertoire while you were studying? How did you encounter it? What was your, because I know the Brenda Fassie story, you watching her backstage and going, I want to be that, I want to be that. Talk to us about your first encounter with Miriam and the power of her repertoire in your life.
Sanbonani, good afternoon. Molo. It is actually unbelievable that I am sitting here talking about Miriam with, my other mother, Omamule Dambulu. And let me say, Uguti, that my first encounter in song of Miriam was a song introduced to me by Usilailo Selota. He introduced a song called Gauteng to me, and I had to learn that song. It was not even here at Varsity, it was before I came here. And I learned that song. For me, sometimes we just sing songs without understanding the depth of the lyrical content and what it carries and what made the person who wrote it write the song. So I learned to understand songs from that point. Uguti, it's not just about the song Gauteng. There's so much that happened and the experiences that she went through when she even sang that song. And I remember we actually would perform that song here with the bands, small bands that we created. But the other songs that we actually got to sing here with the big band, the very first song, and Amanda can actually agree with me with that, on that, is Makongo. Makongo, and I used to kill that song. I promise you, that song, I sang it like it was my own. Like, I don't even know who they wrote it for, but I think they just missed. But I'm telling you now, that song was written for me, Makongo. And we would say, all those songs, when I sing them, I became a part of the song. You have to become a part of the song to be able to live in the moment, to understand what is it about the song that makes it what it is, and that makes the original singer sing it the way they do. And I was also taught a very important lesson, Uguti. Like, for example, Gauteng is not an easy song to sing. Most of the slow songs, the ballads, are not easy to sing. There's an interpretation that has to be there. And I'm talking vocal dynamics that you have to sing. Gauteng. Miriam was gracious when she sang that song. And so, Miriam, I looked at these pictures here and I'm thinking, it is there, it's there. If you're a singer and you're looking at that picture, you know exactly how you need to interpret any one of the songs that she sang. Because if she's standing there and she's like this, you feel it, you see it. The presence that she carried in even a picture. In a picture that says it all for me. And that is what a lot of us as singers can actually learn. It's not just about the song. Something went into that song. When she was on stage, what she carried when you watched her, you wanted to have it. You wanted to have it. So songs like Gauteng, that we used to sing, made us grow so much when we did not want to grow. They forced us to grow, to become better in future. You gotta want to be better. You've got to want to be better.
That's amazing, and I think now would be an opportune time to perhaps have the first little clip. Thandiswa Mazwai, who has sent a clip. I do apologize up front that there's only one screen behind us. It's quite short, where she also, because I love this intergenerational conversation. So if we can maybe have the Thandiswa Mazwai #1 clip, that would be fantastic.
As a young singer, I was acutely aware of the fact that I needed to mold my career on that of Mama Miriam Makeba. She teaches through her career that we need to create music that not only soothes our community, but has this kind of political content. I know it's hard to imagine for a lot of young people, but there was a time when you just could not imagine hearing your language spoken somewhere else in the world, somewhere that was considered prestigious. And Mama Miriam Makeba takes our voices, takes our languages, our words, our experiences, and she takes them with her all over the world. And she does this not only for the experiences of South Africans, but the experiences of Zimbabweans, of all Africans from all over Africa. What Mama does with her music is that she makes our story and our experience as Africans valid. She legitimizes our story. And she does the same for other people who are suffering, people in the Americas, South and North. And she does the same for the rest of the Africans in the diaspora.
You know, I'm coming to you, Nick. These things happen in a very serendipitous way. And a couple of days ago, I sent an email of questions to the panelists, and Makeba writes back and says, listen, let's chat later. And she sends me an email and attaches an essay that she wrote while at Oxford, and titled Cultures of Decolonization. And I read this, and I realize you wrote an entire essay about Miriam Makeba and Fela Kuti, right? And I want to rope you in here because we've now touched on politics. Miriam Makeba rejected the term political singer. We know that she said, I sang the truth, right? But one can argue that is the truth not political, right? You can run from the politics, but they're there. And perhaps as a black person, they are in the blood, right? So your essay, Nige, where you go into the idea that these black artists, right, who were not necessarily in South Africa at the time, they had agency. They were more than just performers. I want you to talk to us about the thinking around, I know you said, yo, Nomfunda, this essay is from 2017, I need to jog my memory. And you can see I've folded my questions, you know, I have them here, but I said we speak from the spirit. Talk to us about, firstly, how did you decide to use Miriam Makeba as one of the musicians in the essay? And what were your findings? Tell us about this agency that you write about in that essay.
Thank you so much, Nomfundo. Molweni. I'd like to preface my response with firstly a big thank you to the organizers for having approached me to appear on this particular panel, because when I received that invitation, it was the unlikeliest thing that would ever end up on my mailbox, because generally I'm known as a journalist who's largely focused on politics and socioeconomic factors in South Africa. Very few people would know that I took this academic hiatus and spent some time delving into issues such as cultures of decolonization. So when that invitation landed, I thought there would be a wonderful opportunity to actually engage with this material, which meant so much to me at the time, and to share it, and to have the huge honor, really, to share it with this august panel. So I just wanted to preface my comments with that first. And now to respond to you, Nomfundo. So there we were sitting in class. The lesson is called Cultures of Decolonization. And one of the essay questions that we had to respond to was, to what extent did African musicians and artists have agency or impact set agendas for decolonization, or were they similarly influenced by them? Answer that particular question using an example or musician of choice. It seemed the most natural thing for me to select Umama Miriam Makeba. I am by no means or extent or measure an aficionado of music or an expert, but she had to such a large degree been the soundtrack to many of our childhoods, in many ways which, as she belted out that sharp soprano, whether she was talking about the struggles of South Africa or struggles elsewhere on the continent, and indeed the increasing tensions within the US itself over racism, that in her storytelling, in her singing, she was able to bring across the urgency and the desperation so vividly That, to me, it seemed a natural choice to explore. And secondly, there are very, very few artists, I think, who have used their musical ability and their talent and have set at the center of so many changes that were pivotal to the decolonization movement. So whether she was singing about her own home country, where she could no longer go back to, and highlighting the atrocities of apartheid as that government became increasingly regime, she was outspoken, she was at the center of singing about those instances, but was also affected by them. Secondly, she's at the center of calls for Pan-Africanism and independence in many countries around the continent. And yet there again, not only is she singing and performing in those countries, she's actively using her voice to speak up for that issue. And thirdly, in the third instance, she does the very same in the United States, whether it was through her aesthetic or her music. Whether unwittingly or not, her music, her style, her language, or the way in which she presented herself begins to infuse the civil rights movement. I think there are very few artists who can say their very persona, their artistry, had cut across such pivotal shifts in our most recent history. And of course, she was just this truly remarkable talent. And so that's why I think I ended up invariably choosing Mama Makeba.
Thank you so much for that. And it leads me to the next question, and you've written about this as well. Because, you know, Miriam Makeba, first of all, let's talk about this question of spirits, Mama. And Dr. Gcina Mhlophe mentioned the spirits, because Mama Miriam was a sangoma. And Miriam says that there was a spirit in her mother that used to visit every time Miriam was around. I think Gumahla Vezulu or something. And, you know, the great warrior. And she said that the spirit visited one day and said to her, and she was busy with King Kong at the time, there was no impediment, and the spirit said to Mahla Vezulu said to her, "You are going to leave South Africa, and when you leave, you will not come back." Yes, she said, Mahla Vezulu said, when you leave, you are going to leave, and when you leave, you are not going to come back. And as she leaves, you know, now the trip happens, and I don't think she was thinking Mahla Vezulu trip. She thought, well, here's a great opportunity to go abroad to promote Comeback Africa. And true to form, as the spirit had predicted, she couldn't come home. I want you to talk to us about the parallels, because now you are in America during a very tumultuous time. In South Africa, it's the apartheid regime. In America, it's the civil rights movement. What are those tensions like? There's Abby Lincoln, there's Nina Simone, you know, these women like yourselves who are in the space, black performers, right? What are the conversations that are happening? Because Miriam talks about, you know, the day Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. You are there. What are you feeling like? I would rather be black and a woman in South Africa than be black and a woman in America.
Well, let me start here. Yes, Miriam, at the time when she arrived in America, the civil rights was on the move. And because of her talent and coming from an oppressed country, most of the people in the civil rights movement were against what was going on in South Africa. So people like Belafonte, because Belafonte is the one who actually took Miriam around and helped Miriam to be the performer that she became. Because Miriam was discovered, you have to go back because the story is long. She was discovered by Steve Allen in London when Miriam was performing there. Because Miriam didn't live here wanting to, you see. She had done a short documentary about Sofata. And she was singing there for people like all the reporters, and I can't remember their names now. And the Boers went after her because they didn't like the fact that she was so popular in South Africa, and then she's making this documentary that talks about the atrocities in South Africa. So she skipped the country. See, people don't know that. Yeah, she skipped the country. She ended up in France. A guy by the name of Roquevoy is the one who helped her leave the country. So when she got to France, somebody decided to put something together in London for her to perform. Fortunately, Steve Allen was there. He was a comedian, and he loved hearing Miriam perform. He called Belafonte, said, hey, Harry, there's a wonderful South African girl here, and it would be nice for you to come down and see her. Harry said, no, why don't you just put her on the plane? You know, when she finishes her concert, she can come to New York. And that's how Miriam ended up in New York. So people like Harry, people like Odetta, people like Oral White, who was a folk singer, all these people embraced Miriam because Belafonte embraced her. So the civil rights movement, and so when you come in at the time of the civil rights movement, of course you're going to be embraced because, you know, people connect you with their own struggle. So Miriam became one of the mix, and Harry said, you're falling in the right hands, and you know, I would like to work with you. And they started working. I think they worked for about 20, Miriam performed with Harry for about 20, 30 years, I'm not sure. But that's how Miriam learned, including myself. We learned that how to be that artist. Because Harry, before it was fashionable, he was on stage telling the truth. Nothing but the truth about America, what was happening. So we all learn from each other. We all learned from Harry, we all learned from Odetta, from Nina Simone, and all these other people. So those people started to embrace us because they realized that we were about the struggle. We were serious about it. But they are the ones who taught us. You know, we learned from them.
And Judith, come in here and maybe, you know, Mamleta speaking about, you know, obviously that era, because artists at the time, there was something to sing about. There was an urgent need. You know, people were dying in South Africa. African Americans also struggling with, you know, with marginalization. And so, what do you think artists now, what are we singing about now? Do we still have that same responsibility? That Abo Mamleta, no Miriam, you know, there was something to sing about. You got on stage, you know, as Nina Simone says, that, you know, the artist's duty is to reflect the times. Do we have a responsibility to reflect the times now? And if so, are we? How far are we? Do you think it's up to the individual artist to model that, you know, that legacy of Mama Miriam and Mamleta and the likes? Bearing in mind that there were women artists who were left behind, who were in South Africa doing the work, right? It wasn't only the women who were in exile. So the struggle was beyond. What are we singing about now? What is our truth now? What are we reflecting now? Do we need to be reflecting something now?
You know, it is actually very, very sad. And then again, this is my opinion. We do not have anymore that quality lyrical content that would change a young girl's life anymore and inspire a young girl anymore. Nowadays, we're talking about what is convenient now. What is making sense to me now? Is it champagne? Is it, you know, but it's nothing that I can say I want to actually sing about in my show. Instead, I go back in time, way back in time, and I'm like, okay, what changed my life? What brought me here? What brought me to a cry, a smile, and a dance? And that very same thing that brought me to a cry, a smile, and a dance changed a lot of people's lives because it changed my life drastically. We don't have, and there's a lot of great talents. Funny enough, I was actually talking about this with someone that because I do my own concepts, you know, that where I invite people to come and perform. And I get stuck with inviting my generation kind of artists and the generation that came before, because they changed my life. And if you were to listen to radio now, every morning, you will hardly hear even your music. Hardly. But we're hearing all the wrong things. It is wrong because we've got young girl children, younger generation that we need to consider. You know, so I think it's still up to, but it's not too late. It's not too late. I'm glad that Thandiswa is recording in New York. And I wonder, you know, how beautiful is it going to be? I have no doubt it will be beautiful. I cannot wait. Yes, so and I cannot wait to even record myself. But the challenge that I have is, will it reach where it is supposed to reach? Are we always going to be sitting here as a panel talking about Abu Miriam? You know, when will we ever sit down and talk about the 2020 generation that actually came, recorded this music, and changed lives? Actually, most of the generation of artists and singers that came, let me say, after me, most of them, they are not only discouraged, they are not inspired to even create. So that we can go and sit and watch. If I go and I sit and watch in an audience, I will not sit throughout the whole show. So it is a fact, and it is something that we are afraid to say and to talk about today, but look at where we are now and what we are talking about. The substance, you know, that is in Miriam's music. It brought us here today. If you play that, we heard the music here today. And I'm glad to say that I was and I am a part of that legacy that was created for me today by generation that came before us. We can call it whatever we want to call it. It can be political, this and that, but it changed. It is the truth that has sharpened us, that has brought us here today, and that has changed our lives. We need to worry about our children, our grandchildren that are coming up. What will they be listening to? It is actually very sad what is being played right now lately.
I'm reminded of the Chinese proverb that you started with, Mamlet, when you said, the beginning of wisdom is when you call it by its name. Nikki, where you travel the length and breadth of the continent, right? And your work involves not only gathering and following stories, but also reporting on them. And I know that you value this concept of delivering and telling stories with authenticity and accuracy. When you think and you look around, you know, every March we'll say, Happy Birthday, Mama Africa. And then in November we say it's, you know, it's the anniversary and it's on the news for a little bit. And you know, so you know if you see a video of Miriam Makeba playing on the news, it's probably her birthday or it's, you know, or it's the anniversary of her death. What do we need to do? How do we tell, how do we capture the stories, but with accuracy? How do we capture this legacy? And Mamle took on, and I would like to think that you want to know, but how are we going to tell the story? You're going to be around for a very long time, but I'm sure you want to know that, what are you going to say? You know, but how do we? How do we? And not just that, but also, when we look at the media space, like what Judith was saying, you know, and radio plays a very pivotal part in messaging, right? Because I'm reminded of Busi Mhlongo saying, our music played only for an hour on it, you know, from 9 till 10 on the radio, and beyond that, you didn't hear it. Yeah. So how is it that not only do we tell the legacies of people like Miriam Makeba with accuracy, but how can we make them more accessible in all manner of mediums in terms of the media?
Yeah. This is such an exciting question for me. As you're posing it, I am already thinking of a number of approaches and ideas. So I will start with a venerable institution such as the University of Cape Town. There is so much, as we know, in the archive, in the intellectual capacity and the research that scholars such as yourselves have studied about the life of Miriam Makeba, trying to understand its impact, its meaning, the conversation we were having earlier about the intersection of her multifaceted influences across culture, across politics, and transnationally as well. That body of work is there. It's sitting neatly and tidily locked up in university libraries. That information needs to be made accessible. It starts there. You start demystifying and illuminating information when academic institutions make it easy to access for people. Start there. And then we start incorporating with something that I think you spoke about that you tried to do earlier by inviting learners. That once that information is distilled and made age appropriate, it is incorporated into the curriculum for learners to understand. So they start internalizing and engaging this rich history of a Miriam Makeba from an early age. It cannot rely on events such as these, as wonderful as this is. It has to be a narrative that is fully understood and internalized within the South African school system and beyond. So tremendous was her impact and legacy. So that's the academic component. I'll move it then to the media's role. There's nothing stopping us or other places of learning to create nugget-size information or videos based on that very same academic material which has been produced into bite-sized information which can be disseminated widely. We begin then to tell that story on whatever platform it may be. It could be traditional mainstream media formats such as radio, which still has the widest reach, by the way, in South Africa. It could be television. The streaming services are hungry for African narratives. And it must be us who tell those stories. We have the material. Let us make it palatable and suitable for that particular platform, but it must retain its truth or its authenticity, as you say. I think there are plenty of opportunities. It's not easy, I don't think, but certainly the ideas are there and the resources need to be found if we are serious about maintaining our heritage, because Miriam Makeba is our heritage. We must guard and protect it, and we must ensure that her story is told into perpetuity. Yeah.
Wow, the message has definitely been delivered there. You know, you're so right. And when we spoke on the phone, I said to you, do you think that English, ulwimi lwesilungu, the language of academia, is exclusionary, right? And you talk about something interesting, the archive. And we think about what is in the archive, and we seldom don't think about what is missing from the archive, right? What is missing from the archive? And Gloria Bosman, when we did one of our dialogue sessions last year, she said, Bafazi, you need to start writing about yourselves. You're going to wait for somebody else to write about you. You need to start writing about yourselves, right? And it hasn't left me, right? And then I want to also just show the last bit, Thandi Somazwai, second video before we move on. So if we can just maybe have that last video, Thandi, so to tie into this. Thank you.
One of the first things you learn about Mama Miriam Makeba growing up during apartheid South Africa, as I did, is that she's exiled, she's without home, she's displaced. And out of that desperation, she begins to build a lexicon of hope and resistance for all of those people who are without home. As her story unfolds, it reveals the destiny to become what we call, the icon that we call Mama Africa. Exiled from home, she finds home in the Africa that we, the oppressed masses living under apartheid in South Africa, dreamed of. The fact that Mama sang not only in her language but in all our language was extremely revolutionary, radical, and futuristic, because she was already reimagining and conjuring a future Africa that is unified and that is beaming in culture and pride and history. An Africa that did not require to assimilate to anything else but to its own true self. In Mama's music, we hear Kiswahili, sounds of Guinea, sounds of Afro-Brazil, Afro-American, you know. And in this way, what she does is she unifies us and brings us closer to our shared experiences.
Mamleta, did you feel pressure that you needed to because you were now in the United States? Did you feel, you know, and you were singing this very important music, and the mission was very real, it was tangible. You know, yes, you've now done the project, the Roots project, you know, you've met the who's who in the African American sort of society, high society. What is it that you can share with us in terms of the challenges and the hardships that we don't know? That thing that you feel like, that we don't know, that we would never imagine. Some of the most challenging, because we see the photographs, when we open the autobiographies, we see the photographs, we listen to the music, and we almost romanticize the legacy, right? We romanticize it because we think, you were living in New York. It must have been so fabulous, right? What are the hardships that we could never even imagine were going on? At least those that you are happy. I'm sure there are those you're thinking, I will never share these ones. Which ones can you share with us in terms of your aniyazi into esasikuyo?
Whoa. Well, listen, there are 1,000,001, but I'm not going to go tell you all of them. But I think the pressure that I felt in the United States was the pressure that I got from the young people of this country. I was very touched watching them on television, fighting so-called power with, with stones, with using shields with, the garbage covers, Zazintos Valley, garbage. And being shot down. And I'm sitting in my house watching television. And I see them being shot. The pressure came when I realized that they are now my barometer. They are my compass. I have work to do. That pressure came from them. I had to do something. They became my strength to work harder, rushing, making mistakes, but saying, I've got to meet this criteria that is being given to me now. I got to do this. So they are the ones who gave me so much pressure. Because America, there's lots. There's a lot in America. There's food, there's whatever, and when I came there, it was... And also, when I looked at the south of America, in the southern part, black people were being shot every day. And I looked at myself and said, wow, they look at this South African who comes here, both Miss Makeba, they look at us as if we came there to make money. Not realizing, not all of them, but some of them, not realizing that we have pressures at home. They've got to do something. We've got to let Americans understand that they should vote at the United Nations correctly. Because we had our own people who were voting against us. So that pressure was heavy. So I really want to thank the South African young people for helping me, for putting that pressure on me, because it helped me to move things a little faster.
Did Miriam ever worry or say that she worries that she will never come back?
No, Miriam always wanted to come back home. She always wanted to come back home. The reason why she even moved to Guinea is because she got married to Stokely, and Stokely said, I'm moving to Africa. And that's how Miriam ended up in Guinea. But she was planning to come home, definitely planning to come home.
She never feared that the ban on her citizenship would just be endless. She knew that she knew in her spirit that she would come home.
No, she knew. Just like me, I always wanted to come home. The only reason, because I had planned to stay in America for 3 years. And when my mother passed on in 1967, I tried to come home. I sent my passport to the immigration, to the embassy of South Africa, and they decided, okay, I got a letter coming from them saying, I'm from the Eastern Cape. My name is Umbolu, and therefore I'm not from Gauteng. And I was born and brought up in Gauteng. So I sent another letter, said, my mom has just died, I need to come home and bury her. The next letter that came was persona non grata. And that dream was shattered. I couldn't come home. But it's okay. I'm here now.
I was going to ask you that actually, because Miriam Makeba couldn't come home to bury her mother. So you shared that common.
Yes.
And how do you suppress the grief? Miriam Makeba loses family in the massacre, in the Sharpeville massacre.
Yeah.
She loses her mother, you lose your mother. But,
Yes.
but there's this pressure that you speak about, that when you see the television, you see what is happening in South Africa, you feel this responsibility. But you cannot run from grief.
Yeah.
And when you are in exile from your homeland, how do you then, on top of that, deal with the compounded grief? Because there's so much loss. There's loss of not being at home, but there's also loss of life. How did you do that?
Well, you know, as South Africans, we used to come together. I mean, a lot of South Africans, especially students. And my home was open to a lot of students from, we were at UCLA and Southern California University. So they used to hang out in my house. And they would, you know, I don't really know what to tell you about grief. You know, I've grieved for so long that it has become second nature to me. But they used to bring a lot of solace to me. We would sit, talk, and talk about the future, because talking about the future gave us hope. We knew that one day we'd get home and change things. Some of the students died in exile, and we sent their ashes home. Some were buried in the United States. I'm lucky that I didn't die there. I'm here. I consider that that I was blessed that I'm able to be in South Africa. So we have a lot of our people who died. Like I said, grief became part of our lives. we dealt with it. And you had to, because pressure was even stronger when you watch television and watching your people die. That was much stronger. At least you said, I have a place at home in the States, I can go and buy food in the supermarket and sit down and watch television. We knew there were a lot of people in South Africa who couldn't even do that. And so, grief? No. We have to deal with it.
Judith, I don't know, that just threw me for a complete loop. You know, I'm thinking, I read somewhere it said that Miriam Makeba was the most visible black South African within the American consciousness. And it goes to quote statistics that she was cited in the New York Times 300 and something times, whereas, you know, Nelson Mandela was cited, I think, 60 something times, and the ANC 100 and something times. And it's interesting because I want us to talk about the fact that, you know, as women artists, right, we know that historically, and perhaps that continues to linger in the background, that women oftentimes live in the shadow of their male counterparts. And I'm asking this question, I could ask it to Mom later, right? But, and I as an artist, but I'm asking it to you, I guess, to say, how is it that women, also just augmenting what Gloria had said, that we must write about each other, about ourselves, right? Do you think that there's a lesson to be learned? When you look at Miriam Makeba, you look at her legacy, do you feel that it is free from the shadows, right, of the men who were in her life, be it professionally or personally, right? And also, how can we as a younger generation of women artists, you know, hold our own, right? And make sure that our story is not told as an appendage, as a handbag to a man's story, irrespective, right? Because there's always that risk that unomfundo bengazoba into ethile if it weren't for. Judith would not be into ethile if it weren't for, right? How do we begin to deal with that?
You tell your story, guys. I think it won't stop now. It has not been able to stop, but we are not silenced. I believe that in song, you know, through our children, through every encounter, when you meet another woman and she's going through whatever it is that she's going through, whether good or bad, it is important for us to support one another as women and to talk about our experiences, our challenges. When I write songs, I always write about my personal experiences. Even if I will write about, I lost a baby, and I took that experience and I turned it. I didn't make it only about me. I went into the world because I realized that there's a lot of women that have actually gone through what I had gone through. And the pain that I felt, only the person next door who had gone through it would understand. But someone who has not gone through that experience could be prepared, rather, in song. And it became comforting for so many people. And, you know, that is one of the songs that I prayed, Uguti, it could be played. If anything, let it be played and let the energy be sent out there. Let people hear. But it was a positive song because I took an experience that was very, very bad. It's not every day that you would hear someone saying, I was holding my child and she was 3 months old. And she looked at me and I saw her go, you know, and that's what happened to me. And I took that, I was like, what did I learn from this? I went back to all the days that I had been walking with her, how she changed my life for the good. Because I became stronger as a woman. I could stand up to someone who was actually oppressing me and suppressing me at the time. You know, the support you needed was not really there. And I took that and I was like, I learned something from this little girl because I saw her fight for her life. Not in words. She could not say it's painful here. We didn't even know what she was going through, but I wrote a song called Palesa. If you listen to Palesa, Palesa is a beautiful song. It's a positive song, and it's encouraging, but this is the story behind it. So we need to tell our stories, but do not tell your story. Do not be afraid to tell your story using your own voice, your own ideas. Speak to it. Is your life, it is your story, so tell it. No one has the right in this day and age to say you cannot. People are dying every day.
And you're telling that, and I'm thinking about Miriam Makeba losing Bongi.
Exactly.
Right, and what a dark period that must, but
Yes.
found solace in song.
So there's so much. Tell me any occasion that you can go to right now where there will be no music. Tell me one event. The first, they might call you and say, we don't have a budget, but they need you. They need your music because music heals. Music restores. Music brings families together. Music will make you want to learn more about it. Music has brought us here today. And in actual fact, music chooses you. Do you know that? Music chooses you. It doesn't matter what style it is. But just tell a good story. We are in the business of changing lives. When you have a calling upon you to be a singer, a saxophone player, or anything that has to do with music, it is a huge responsibility. Take it very seriously, but nobody must tell you, do not sing about this, do not talk about this.
Yeah,
not
yes.
anymore.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's... I want to shift gear now to... We've spoken about Miriam Makeba as the artist, the songwriter, the performer. We've spoken about Miriam as the activist, right? Can we talk about Miriam Makeba as a businesswoman? She was a businesswoman. She was an entrepreneur. More especially in Guinea. She owned a nightclub, if I'm not mistaken. She was a businesswoman. She knew how to... And I think it goes back to what, you know, she says she learned from her mother who sold the umqomboti, right? That you need to be self-sufficient. Now, I feel, and I often look around and I think, what is it structurally? Maybe Nikki, I'm going to pose it. What is it structurally that is, you know, putting women on the back foot of economic participation in the music industry, in the arts industry? What is it that we can do to be front and center? I remember a conversation with Dimlebele, Brenda, who the ambassador, last year we did a dialogue session. That's right. And she said, women need to move from the peripheries and we need to come into the center, right? And I think when I read Miriam Makeba's story, and it's debilitating because no one sat down and taught you about royalties, right? She says, you know, they would go into the studio, they would record something, and she said we'd get paid, I don't know, 10 pounds or something, 4 pounds, 10 pounds shilling, you know, and then that was it. And she said, I didn't know what royalties were, and no one was offering the information. So what is it that is structurally imbalanced that we need to address from an economic perspective to say, we are women, we are artists, we are entrepreneurs, we need to know how our money moves. Miriam Makeba, she owned, you know, property. We don't talk about these. We don't see these things, right? And yes, you know, we could go on forever about royalties and how outstanding they are and just the whole sort of mismanagement of black artists at the time. But what is it that we can learn and how can we remedy to bring women into the economic center? How does the money move? Do you wrong? I want to make money. I want to understand the business. But also, I don't want to function in an industry that doesn't give me access to information about how the economy of music works. And Miriam and the likes of her time as well. I don't know, Mamleta, if you'll want to add afterwards, you know, what your experience was after Onike was spoken about. You know, how is it that we can be in the center participating in how the money and how the business of our craft works?
Sure, you know, it's an age-old question. The unhealthy and toxic nexus, I will speak to South Africa, of patriarchy and the apartheid capitalist system, which sort of course ensure that women were at the bottom of the rung. So it doesn't matter which sector it is, whether it's music, it's arts, or anything else. You will always find that to this day, because the structure was created to exclude, women will still struggle to get to the center. It doesn't mean that we must accept that stance or posture as our position, but it's about that access to information that you've just spoken about, with increasing efforts and levels of education. People now have greater access to that knowledge to ensure that they're able to improve their lot in life. We're already seeing a trajectory where female graduates now outnumber male graduates in South Africa. So even with that kind of empowerment and upliftment, you still see a gender pay gap, even when women are more qualified. You see how the permutation now, it replicates the structure, and it's not merely a South African issue or construct, it's a global one. It will replicate until the fight against it is broken. And that demands our labor, all of us, collectively, to understand that these are not our shortcomings. No, I wasn't good enough, or I didn't negotiate well enough that particular contract. The system is devised to disadvantage you. And once we make that recognition, and once we challenge it openly, time and time again, it might seem tedious and exhausting, but we must never tire, because the system will seek to exclude. So my sense is that whether it's in music, arts and culture, in financial services, in politics, the fight is a persistent and consistent one, because we're against the wall, you know? And I just wanted to add to the points that you made earlier, Judith, about women being seen through, to some extent, the lens of who they're associated with, whether it is romantic partners or people that they've worked with within music. And it's interesting in the story of Miriam Makeba, who was aligned at various stages in her career with very high-profile men, whether as musicians or as romantic partners or political leaders. The narrative, which I think people tried to portray and elevate, is that, you know, she was working in tandem with them, yet it is abundantly clear from the inputs that we've just heard today, from her musical contribution, from her political activism, to what she decided she would portray as her own identity and her aesthetic, that a lot of that was driven by her own agenda, her own agency. People have tried, and they fail, to make her story linked to others. And that's not to downplay the role that those men played. Certainly it was significant, but it was not as instrumental, I think, as other people would like us to believe. Yeah.
Wow, that is absolutely, right? This question of unbundling, right? That her legacy belongs to, you know, she's a woman who knew what she was doing, and she had it. Mamleta, what was going on? Did you understand what was going on at the time? You know, I know that you worked with the manager, John Levy. did you have access to this information about contracts, right? And did Miriam share any tidbits, advice? Because I know that when she got to the United States, and she was going to record with Harry Belafonte, I think for RCA, they said to her, you can't, because you are owned by Galotone. And she said, owned by what? And she said, no, you can't. They said, you can't record, right? So she had to be bought out of a contract that she never signed. More on that on another day, sure. But talk to us about the conversations that you were having around business, royalties. Did you get your check? Did you perform at the Village Vanguard? Could you even negotiate? I mean, I get nervous now trying to give a quote. I'm like, oh, I just got, is it too much? Is it too much money? Am I worth that much money? No, it's too much.
Well, I'm laughing because the story that you're telling is actually my story. Gallo did the same thing to me when I arrived in the States, because I had a contract with them here, because I was singing with the Skylarks at the time, after Miriam left. So when I got to this, Gallo, CEO, decided to help me get my papers out of the, to get out of the country, because I had to do it clandestinely. Okay, because they gave my passport because he was a white guy. So I was able to go, get the passport, and leave the country. But when I got outside, when they heard that I stayed, I stayed for about a year without recording. And I needed to record so that I could be able to get work. When they heard that I'm signed up now with Capitol Records, and that came through John Levy, who was my manager. Black guy. Levy is the Jewish name, but he's black. I made sure of that. So he got me a contract with Capitol Records, and when they heard my first song called Bulaya Buleitla, they called Gallo and said, I have a contract with them, and I cannot sign up with them. Gallo said, but we signed it up already, and the album is coming out. No, you can't do that. And Gallo decided, Capitol Records said, well, why don't you get in touch with Letters management? Because that discussion should be with them, with him, your Letters manager. They sent a letter to John, and Gallo sent a letter to John, and John read it. And he said, Lera, you're in trouble because you just signed up. You were signed with Gallo, and now I just signed you up with Capitol Records. How are you going to get out of this? I said, but I've been here for a year. They didn't do anything. They should have connected me with the company that they work with here, or whatever production company. And I said, I needed to have my own place. I needed to pay my bills. I needed to do all kinds of things. And they didn't care. So John said, okay, let me get a lawyer for you. We called Mr. Cohen. Cohen said, no, if you've been here for a year and Gallo didn't do anything to facilitate you working, then I think we will turn this thing into a political issue. John said, okay, I think it sounds good. Let's turn it into a political issue. So Cohen wrote a letter, sent it to Gallo. They said, you are persecuting Lera. You didn't do anything when she was here, and now you want her to go back and sign with you? No. This is a political issue because you guys are racists. And that was the end of story. They sent a letter, said, we withdraw.
Judith has to catch a flight back to Johannesburg. Judith, there's not much longer to go for us as well, but we don't want to keep you. Is there anything, a parting shot before you've already thrown so many incredible gems, right? Just a parting shot in terms of how do you think and how do you believe we need to carry this legacy of Miriam Makeba forward, right? As custodians of this legacy, right? How is it that you envision us and future generations carrying this Miriam Makeba legacy forward?
I believe to some extent, some of us have already started. It's so beautiful to walk into a place and you're hearing a song that you don't know of, and when they ask whose song is this, you say, this is my Miriam Makeba's song. So those songs are the ones that have built us. They are our truth. They are our foundation. Those songs, everything, everywhere we are as artists, as singers, we have to have a beginning. You've got to know where you come from. You need to find out more about your history. So when we talk about it more, we sing about it more. Hopefully one day, I don't even know if it will happen, there will be a music book about it. Our library must be filled with her music, her book. We need to talk about her. We need to tell our children, educate one another about her music, about her as a person, her history, her life. It is such a beautiful life to learn about. So you want to be a part of that legacy. You want to be a part of that history because it's a good one. It's a good one.
Thank you so much, Judith. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And we hope that you'll travel safely back to Johannesburg. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, please put it together for Miss Judith Sipuma. Absolutely. Love it, selfie. Thank you, Judith. Girl, you're looking so fine. We're nearing the end of our discussion, and I want to go back to just this power of the repertoire and how it evokes memory. And I want us to travel a little bit down memory lane. I have a clip. You're probably not, I don't know if you're going to be happy with me about this clip, but I thought I'm not going to tell you up front in case you say, don't play it. You are in, talk to us about a warm December. Firstly, where did you learn the song from? And how did you, I mean, I know how you landed up singing it because I've heard you in an interview, but you are here to tell your own story, not me. So I'm going to give it, how did you learn that song? Who taught it to you? And how did it land up in Sidney Poitier's movie, A Warm? And then we're going to play the clip immediately afterwards.
Okay. This is how it happened. You know, as South Africans living in New York, we didn't have factions. There was no PAC, there was no ANC, there was no unity movement, there was nothing like that. We were South Africans. We were there to fight, struggle for our people. So, these songs we used to sing because some of the people that taught us this song came from the camps. They got scholarships to come and study in New York. So they would sing these songs. And that's how I learned the song. And I loved the song. And I decided I want to perform it in my shows. And of course, white people were crazy about clicks, you know, like that. And but black people used to ask questions. When you say, what do you mean? And we hear ngongo. What does ngongo mean? And we would explain. So the song became very popular. Every time I performed it, everybody was saying, if they would end, that's the only thing they wanted to, they like to do. Then one day, I was performing with Belafonte at the Greek Theatre. And Sidney Poitier was in town, because Sidney was very close to her. They were very good friends. They actually grew up together. And he heard me sing the song. And that was it. I mean, I knew he was in the audience, he loved it. 2 days later, Harry called me and said, Lera, Sydney loved that song, Konkotone. I mean, Bahleli Bonke, because Harry loved it too. Bahleli, we would try to sing it. He loved the song. He said he wants to do it in a movie. I said, oh, that's good. And he said, but he wants to do the movie in London. And he would like you to sing the song in his movie. I said, Bahleli bonke. I didn't see the two things going together. Bahleli bonke dilonge, I'm singing in a nightclub. No, it didn't make sense to me. But I said, you know, it'd be nice to go to London and just hang, you know. And when I got there, Sydney said, Lera, that song, you've got to do that song. I have written it out. I know how it's going to look. It's not going to be a nightclub scene. Harry told me that you don't think it should be in a nightclub, but I'm going to make sure that the scene is correct. I said, okay. And I collected all the South Africans in London. I called all of them, Modu to Pugwana, all of them. I said, come and listen to this song, and you're going to get paid for it. And they came, and that's how it happened. That's really how it happened.
That is, we've got the clip here, if we can please, and I'm thinking, you know, Miriam Makeba kind of saying in her book, Letta was a beautiful singer, and she said she could do things with her voice that I couldn't do. And she said, I sang straight, but Letta could improvise.
Whoa.
That's
a compliment.
I'm quoting from Miriam, you know.
Wow.
So, and oftentimes we hear no, right? I mean, my first encounter definitely was the Miriam Makeba version, right? And it was only very recently that I saw the clip from A Warm December. Right. So I thought it would be quite a treat to share it with the audience this afternoon.
Bahleli bonke etilongweni, bahleli bonke kwaNongqongqo, bahleli bonke etilongweni, bahleli bonke kwaNongqongqo, bahleli bonke etilongweni, bahleli bonke kwaNongqongqo. Bahleli bonke etilongweni, bahleli bonke kwaNongqongqo. Halala, Bahleli bonke kwaNongqongqo.
What comes to mind? What comes to mind when you watch yourself? I know the movie came out around 1973, and I don't know when the filming happened, but what year it happened? It was in 1975. Tell me, how do you feel when you watch that? Because I know for myself, when I watch that, and I need to credit Miss Shadow Twala for sharing that clip with me, because I'd never seen it before. So, Shadow, thank you for sharing that with me. I really appreciate it. It really changed so much for me in terms of how I hear that song. But how does it make you feel too?
Boy, it just reminds one how far we have come to shake the status quo. It's not fallen yet. We need to do more. It takes me back to all the things we tried to change the mind. And at the same time, it saddens me when I look at that. Because I look at that our kids, after all of that, we are still going through the same changes. It's very difficult. Some of the people in the film are gone. They've passed on. And we're still here, trying to find this path. And that is why it's interesting you play this clip at the end when I said I wanted to make that statement about the Chinese proverb. The beginning of wisdom is when we call things by their real name. We are still where we are because nothing has changed. The names haven't changed. Nothing. This country of ours is still called South Africa. It's the cardinal point. We have no country. We say this country, Cape Town, is mother city. Mother city for who? We were here all along. Our forefathers had a name for this place. Who's the one with the guts to say, I came through here, and therefore it's my mother city? We have to begin to call things with their real name. And that's the truth that we are refusing to deal with. And what Dadomkulu, they will punish us. We are complaining about our kids, what's going on with the children of this country. We're complaining about the men what they're doing to us as women. Have we had important conversation with all these men and women together to ask, what did apartheid actually do to you? Have we done it? We are in pain, all of us. We are all in pain. We need to begin to tell the truth about ourselves so we can move forward. Thank you.
I think, Nikiva, do you agree? I think maybe that is an excellent place, the appropriate place to end the afternoon's discussion. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sure. The one thing I learned back in the day, was that you do not corner veteran artists to sing, and I learned it very long. It's a lesson I learned, and I stick by that. I stick by that. No, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you so much, Mama. Brenda, do you want to? Bahleli bonke etilongweni, bahleli bonke kwanongqongqo, bahleli bonke etilongweni, bahleli bonke kwanongqongqo. Iniwe ma-Afrika, uzoteni, iniwe ma-Afrika, uzoteni. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could spare us 10 minutes to invite the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, Associate Professor Shose Kesi, to come and officially close proceedings this afternoon, it would be most appreciated and appropriate. Over to you, Prof.
It suddenly feels very quiet. But greetings and a very good afternoon to everyone, and thank you very much for being with us today. My name is Shose Kesi. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities here at UCT, and it's my absolute pleasure to have been part of today's wonderful Africa Month commemorations. Today we tackled the very important questions of language and music for the liberation and integration of Africa. The panelists and performers reminded us that despite Africa's liberation and integration being fraught with complications, we continue to work towards the dream of a united Africa. The University of Cape Town's Vision 2030 makes explicit the university's plans to shape our teaching and research in ways that support our development as an African institution, in location, in spirit, and in the teaching and research that we co-produce. The Faculty of Humanities at UCT envisions itself as a Pan-African decolonial research-intensive institution that is a trusted voice on matters that concern scholars in the arts, the social sciences, the performing and creative arts, and indeed on matters that concern all citizens of the Global South. We seek to harness our scholarship and networks to become the gateway to Africa for researchers from around the world. The faculty has not only been enriched by a diverse group of African, Africanist and Black scholars, artists and performers, but has made the intellectual work of the continent a centerpiece of our research and teaching. As a gateway for such scholarship in Africa, the faculty aims to be a university of choice for professionals and academics seeking to complete their master's and doctoral studies and collaborate on research projects that take us closer to the just and prosperous Pan-African society we imagine for ourselves. These events celebrating Africa Day represent efforts in that direction. I have very, very many people to thank, and I would like to start by extending my deep gratitude on behalf of the university and the faculty to all our panelists, Your insights and your thoughtful engagement today have truly enriched all of us who are present, and I believe we are all better equipped to tackle the question of our continent's integration than we were this morning. You have given us new ideas and a better language with which to ponder these questions, these key questions of our time. I'm also very grateful to International Jazz Day South Africa, with whom we have worked closely to put this event together. It would not have been possible without you, and thank you in particular to Brenda Sisane for working hard to make everything flow today. To the South African College of Music, thank you for hosting the masterclass for our talented guests from the high school sector earlier today, and indeed thank you to our visitors for being here with us today and participating in the masterclass. We hope to see some of you back here in the years to come. I saw they had to leave a little bit earlier, but hopefully they'll be listening online. Thank you to the UCT Jazz Choir and UCT Big Band for a fantastic performance and tribute to Miriam Makeba. It's so beautiful to see the amazing work that my colleagues are doing at the College of Music, and thank you to our students for making us proud with your unbelievable talent. To my colleagues at the UCT's Development and Alumni Department and the Communication and Marketing Department, there's so much work that goes into organizing occasions like this one. So allow me to acknowledge the huge effort that you've all made, often behind the scenes, to help us do justice to Africa Day commemorations. To our hosts, the Baxter Theatre Center, we could not have asked for a better space. And since the onset of the pandemic, gatherings like these have been treasured. And being able to host it here at our most cherished Baxter space means a lot to us. To each and every one of you in the audience, thank you for your presence, for your attention, for your curiosity, and for your desire to be part of conversations like these. It is this enthusiasm that will take us closer to solutions to questions such as the one on the table today. And finally, thank you to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Pakeng, for her vision and making this event possible today. Let this be the beginning of a conversation. So when we're ready, sign up to learn Kiswahili at UCT, and let us leave today with a renewed sense of unity and collective purpose. Asanteni sana kwa ushiriki wenu katika sherehe hii wa leo ya siku ya Afrika hapa UCT. Tunashukuru sana, karibuni tena.